December 7, 1941. Battleship Row, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The morning sun had barely risen when the first wave of Japanese aircraft screamed down from the sky. The air was filled with the shriek of sirens, the thunder of explosions, and the acrid stench of burning oil drifting across the harbor. On the deck of the USS Nevada, BB-36, sailors scrambled to their battle stations, their hands trembling as they loaded ammunition into anti-aircraft guns. Lieutenant Commander Francis Thomas, the ship's acting executive officer, barked orders above the chaos. "Get those guns firing. Keep them off us." His voice carried over the din as Japanese Aichi-D-3A Val dive bombers peeled downward, their bombs whistling through the air. The Nevada, moored alone at the northern end of Battleship Row, became a prime target. A torpedo slammed into her port side, shattering the steel hull and throwing men off their feet. The blast ripped open compartments, flooding them instantly. Yet the crew fought back. The 5-inch guns roared, tracers streaking into the sky, and sailors manned .50 caliber machine guns with bare hands blistered from the heat. Smoke poured from the harbor as the Arizona erupted in a cataclysmic explosion nearby, its magazine detonating in a fireball that shook the earth. Men aboard the Nevada watched in horror, but they had no time to grieve. Another wave of Japanese bombers descended, and the battleship's deck became a killing ground. Captain Francis W. Scanlon, though ashore at the time, had left his officers with standing orders. If attacked, fight to the last shell. And fight they did. The Nevada's gunners managed to shoot down at least one attacker, the flaming wreck plunging into the harbor waters. But the ship was bleeding badly. With her engines still operational, the Nevada began to move. She was the only battleship to get underway during the attack. Slowly, painfully, she steamed past the burning hulks of the Oklahoma and West Virginia, her crew hoping to escape into open water. The sight of a lone American battleship moving under her own power enraged Japanese pilots. They swarmed her, determined to sink her in the channel and block the harbor entrance. Bombs rained down. One struck near Turret 2, killing dozens instantly. Another tore through the deck, igniting fires that threatened the magazines. The ship shook violently, her hull groaning under the punishment. Men staggered through smoke-filled corridors, dragging wounded comrades, their uniforms soaked in blood and seawater. Lieutenant Commander Thomas made a fateful decision. If the Nevada sank in the channel, Pearl Harbor would be sealed. He ordered the ship run aground at Hospital Point. With her bow buried in the mud, the battered battleship lay silent, her decks littered with debris, her guns still smoking from the fight. By the time the attack ended, the Nevada was a wreck, torpedoed, bombed, burning, and grounded. Yet she had not been lost. Her crew had saved her from destruction, and in doing so, preserved the harbor's lifeline. As the smoke cleared, sailors looked around at the devastation. Battleship Row was a graveyard. The Arizona was gone, the Oklahoma capsized, the West Virginia sinking. But the Nevada, though battered, still lived. No one aboard could have imagined that this crippled ship, half sunk in the mud, would one day rise again, and return to strike back at the enemy who thought they had destroyed her forever. December 8, 1941. The morning after the attack. Pearl Harbor was eerily quiet compared to the chaos of the day before. Smoke still drifted across the water, and the smell of burning oil clung to the air. The USS Nevada lay grounded at Hospital Point, her bow buried in mud, her hull scarred by torpedoes and bombs. Her decks were littered with twisted steel and shattered wood. Dead sailors had been carried off, and survivors moved like ghosts, exhausted but alive. Naval engineers and salvage crews arrived quickly. Admiral Chester Nimitz, newly appointed commander-in-chief of the Pacific Fleet, understood the symbolic importance of saving every ship possible. The Nevada was not just steel and rivets. It was a statement. If she could be brought back, so could the fleet. Divers slipped into the murky water, their lamps cutting through the oil-slicked harbor. They patched holes with steel plates, pumped out compartments, and sealed ruptured bulkheads. Inside the ship, crews worked tirelessly to clear debris and shore up weakened frames. The battleship groaned as pumps forced water out of her flooded belly. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, the Nevada was refloated, tugged free from the mud, and towed to dry dock. There, her wounds were laid bare. Gaping holes in her hull, scorched decks, shattered gun mounts. Yet the ship's core remained intact. Her engines, though battered, could be repaired. Her armor, though pierced, could be reinforced. The Navy decided not only to repair her, but to modernize her. The Nevada had been commissioned in 1916, a veteran of World War I. She was outdated compared to newer battleships. But now, she would be reborn. Workers stripped her down, removing old cage masts and replacing them with modern tripod towers. Her anti-aircraft defenses were massively expanded. New 5-inch dual-purpose guns, dozens of 40mm Bofors, and 20mm Oerlikons bristled along her decks. Radar was installed, giving her eyes in the dark. Armor was reinforced, and her engines were overhauled. By mid-1942, the Nevada was no longer the battered relic of Pearl Harbor. She was a modernized warship, bristling with firepower, ready to fight again. Her crew, many of them survivors of the attack, returned to her with pride. They had seen her nearly destroyed, and now they would sail her back into battle. Word of her resurrection spread across the Pacific. Sailors whispered about the ghost ship that had risen from the mud. To the Japanese, who had believed she was finished, the news was shocking. Their high command had counted the Nevada among the dead. Now, she was alive again, and soon she would be coming for them. May 1943. The Atlantic Ocean. The USS Nevada cut through the waves, her gray hull gleaming under the spring sun. She was no longer the battered wreck of Pearl Harbor. Her decks bristled with new anti-aircraft guns, her radar antenna rotated steadily, and her crew, many of them hardened survivors, stood taller, prouder. The ship had been reborn, and now she was sailing into war once more. Her first mission was escort duty. Convoys of merchant ships carried vital supplies across the Atlantic, constantly hunted by German U-boats. The Nevada, with her heavy guns and modern defenses, became a guardian of these lifelines. Sailors watched the horizon for periscopes, their fingers resting on triggers, ready to unleash depth charges and gunfire. In June 1944, the Nevada was chosen for one of the most critical operations of the war, the Normandy invasion. At dawn on June 6th, she steamed into position off Utah Beach. Her massive 14-inch guns thundered, hurling shells inland to smash German fortifications. Each blast shook the sea, the recoil reverberating through her steel bones. Onshore, American troops advanced under her cover. The Nevada's gunners fired with precision, obliterating pillboxes, artillery batteries, and strongpoints that threatened the landing forces. Smoke and dust rose from the coastline as her shells tore craters into enemy defenses. For the crew, it was a moment of vindication. They remembered the flames of Pearl Harbor, the screams of comrades lost, the humiliation of being run aground. Now, their ship was delivering payback, her guns roaring in support of liberation. The Nevada continued her service across Europe, bombarding Cherbourg and later supporting operations in southern France. Each time she fired, the echoes carried a message. The battleship that Japan thought destroyed was alive, powerful, and striking back. News of her return spread across the Pacific. Japanese intelligence confirmed that the Nevada had fought at Normandy. For the high command in Tokyo, it was a bitter shock. They had counted her among the wrecks of December 7th, a symbol of American defeat. Yet here she was, not only repaired but modernized, hammering Axis defenses thousands of miles away. The Nevada had become more than a ship. She was a symbol of resilience, proof that America could take its worst blow and rise stronger. And her journey was far from over. Soon, she would steam west, toward the Pacific, to face the enemy who had tried to kill her. Spring 1945. The Pacific Ocean. The USS Nevada steamed westward, her bow cutting through the swells as she joined the massive armada preparing for the final assaults against Japan. She had already proven herself in Europe, but now she was returning to the theater where her story had begun, against the enemy who had tried to destroy her at Pearl Harbor. Her destination was Iwo Jima. In February, the Nevada took her place among the bombardment fleet. As Marines prepared to storm the black volcanic sands, her 14-inch guns opened fire. The thunder rolled across the island, shells smashing into Japanese bunkers carved deep into the rock. Each blast sent plumes of smoke and ash skyward, shaking the earth beneath defenders who had once believed this ship was gone forever. The Japanese High Command received reports. The Nevada was here. The same battleship they had torpedoed and bombed into the mud at Pearl Harbor was now pounding their fortifications. For officers who had counted her among the wrecks, the realization was staggering. She had not only survived, she had returned stronger. Weeks later, the Nevada sailed to Okinawa, the largest amphibious assault of the Pacific War. Kamikaze planes screamed down from the skies, diving toward the fleet in suicidal fury. The Nevada's gunners opened fire, tracers stitching the air, explosions ripping apart incoming aircraft. One kamikaze struck near her gun mounts, killing sailors and wounding others, but the ship endured. Her crew fought fires, carried the wounded, and kept her guns blazing. Day after day, the Nevada hurled shells inland, supporting troops locked in brutal combat. Her decks shook with the recoil, her barrels glowed red-hot, and her crew worked without rest. She had become a veteran of two oceans, a survivor of Pearl Harbor, Normandy, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. For the Japanese, her presence was more than military, it was psychological. The Nevada embodied American resilience. She was proof that what had been shattered could rise again, stronger than before. The ship they thought buried in the mud of Pearl Harbor was now hammering their defenses in the final battles of the war. As the guns fell silent and Japan neared surrender, the Nevada stood as a living symbol of endurance. She had been nearly destroyed, resurrected, and unleashed across two theaters of war. Her survival stunned the Japanese High Command, and her return to battle became one of the most remarkable stories of the conflict. The battleship that refused to die had come full circle.